Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Apodcalypticast. My name is Zachary Ballard.
I am Josh Demi.
I am Chris Vlamakis.
And I'm Jonah Lavelle.
We have a good one for you guys. We are reviewing The Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of Black Pearl. We figured we did Muppet Treasure Island last week, and we wanted to go with the pirate theme this month. And because Thanksgiving and the Pilgrims were basically pirates and took and pillaged the Native Americans' land and stuff, so we figured
With
this
help.
was a good month to do it. So
Jesus Christ.
without
Well,
further
there is a
ado,
little bit further ado. We do have a guest tonight.
we do have a guest.
We have
Ah,
Chloe
yes.
Demi here.
Hi.
Yeah.
Oh, Chloe.
She got in because of nepotism.
No, she really runs the fucking organization. So
You're,
just
you're
gonna
not
like,
wrong.
She's the head of the
Somebody's
Ponzi
gotta keep you
scheme.
guys on track.
Yep.
we,
All right.
we might have a B-roll one day of our meetings to show to people out there, and then it'll be like,
Oh God, no.
it's a 7-hour B-roll, just so you know.
Hell yeah. All right. Now, without further ado, I can't speak tonight, but this was a really good movie. I only watched it when I was a child, and I didn't really like it because I was a child and I thought it was boring. But after watching as an adult and being versed on the world of entertainment, I really thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, like obviously this movie, it spawned a whole franchise of Pirates of the Caribbean movies that's technically still lasting, but because of certain current events, may not be quite the same. But
Yeah.
it it also very much follows kind of like with what we said before, Muppet Treasure Island, and a whole lot of what you would consider good pirate movies. It's definitely a good like adventure film.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I would also say that Curse of the Black Pearl is one of those adventure films that is it's a little bit deeper than you would think. There is an actual theme that's not just let's go on an adventure.
Oh yeah, like well, we could just jump right into theme and everything
Yeah.
like that.
That's
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. It's oh man, yeah. There's a couple of things when I was rewatching the film because it's been several years since I've watched it too. Like there's a couple of different themes, honestly. Like what what does it mean to be like be a good person, and can you be a good person while also being a pirate? Kind of like that sort of like
Yeah.
morality.
Like, are bad guys always bad?
Yeah,
Is kind of
like
how I was putting it.
because multiple times throughout the movie when they're talking about Will Turner's dad, Bootstrap Bill, everyone kept saying that he was a good man, like he was a
Yeah, well,
pirate.
and I
But
think my
yeah,
favorite line regarding Bootstrap is either you can accept that your father was a pirate and a good man, or you can't.
yeah, like that's a very interesting because it very much shows because like what a lot of places and obviously what their government would be saying to everyone is that every single pirate is a despicable, murderous criminal.
Yeah.
Uh, Whereas a lot of them probably were people that just simply were down and out and couldn't find work anywhere else. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean that's I as so we watched Curse of the Black Pearl last night, me and Chloe, and we've watched the other four today. We're right in the
oh,
middle
really?
of Dead Men Tell No Tales, and we had to pause it so we could come and do this podcast. Um, and so yeah, no, I've been watching Pirates movies literally all day. It's the first weekend that I don't have any
Other
script
things.
writing or audiobook editing or auditions or anything that I've got going on, so I've just been lazy as crap.
Okay, and so yeah, so you have context throughout basically all the movies now.
Yeah, yeah. I did while we're talking about theme and stuff. I did it kind of ties into costumes, and so we might double back on this later.
Okay.
But last night, as we were as we were watching the first movie, Chloe asked.
I asked, what is the purpose of the hats? Like the three.
The tricorn hat.
The tricorn hat, because all hats are made with some sort of usage or purpose. And I was like, what is their purpose? And so Josh started researching it.
Yeah, and I did some research and I looked into it, and the tricorn hat actually comes from the Spaniards. The Spaniards had those big wide brim hats that would like be floppy and all over the place. And as their navy was sailing, they were trying to figure out a way to keep that status symbol of the hat, but get the floppiness out of the way so that they could hear better, they could see better, and they started pinning up the brim of the hat. And if you had your hat pinned up, you were a respectable sailor. You were somebody who could go out and the Spaniards could trust that you would do things.
I never knew that. Yeah, that's definitely questions that a lot of people, including myself, never ask. Is like, why did their hats look like this?
But yeah, so respectable people had the tricorn, right? And when we're looking at like theme, can a pirate be a good man? There's only one pirate consistently shown with a tricorn hat in that entire movie. Yeah. And it is Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, Barbossa has
the wide rim.
Barbossa has the big wide brimmed hat. Although, and this is something that like if we wanted to do the other movies we could delve into, as each movie goes on, Barbossa's hat becomes more and more pinned up.
That's what I was just going to say.
I was planning, because I'm in a pirate mood now, I was planning on rewatching those movies as well. But I'm actually far more familiar with those movies than the middle like 3 movies than I am in the first and the latest one.
Yeah.
Mainly just because of how recently I've watched them. But that is a pretty interesting thing. That's like, it very much shows like they're like with the theme and a little bit characterization with costuming and everything like that about like going with that, like who is quote unquote good, because like Jack Sparrow is selfish throughout the entire movie, obviously, and very much 90% of his plans are him trying to go for him not dying, him being released, him getting the pearl back.
He's an anti-hero.
Yeah, he is an anti-hero. He doesn't want harm to be brought upon like anybody. Will. Like when he tells Will, like, just stay here and don't do anything stupid, and then Will fucking cracks him over the head with the oar. It's like, Will is being his own like antagonist in that sort of scenario. Like,
yeah, well, and you also watch Will like at the beginning when he's the blacksmith and just a blacksmith, he's got a tricorn hat. And then by the end of the movie, he's got one of those big musketeer hats.
And
it's
that's
only pinned up on the one side.
Yeah, we could talk. Let's mention that more in costumes.
Before we move on from Jack, real fast, and Jack's personality, and yes, he is selfish, but yes, he cares. I would also like to mention that at one point in the movie, Elizabeth mentions that he took down an entire, raided an entire town, took down entire ships without firing a shot.
Yeah.
Like, he avoids violence. He causes chaos, but he does not actually want to kill people.
I'm not sure if there's like a name of that type of character, but it's the type of character who is very good at fighting, but uses it to like
get out of trouble.
Yeah, to get out of fighting, but because everyone fucking hates their guts, the town basically destroys itself trying to get to them.
Yeah.
And he does do that, yeah.
I wanted to say something. I really enjoyed like the ending line where her dad basically says piracy itself can be the right course, and it just made me think of like we've all grown up in Utah, and we've all like pirates were persecuted, and I looked it up because I was wondering if they're in the Caribbean, would these pirates be white? And I looked it up, and they were like English and European sailors who just got shipwrecked and just needed to get food and stuff, and so like they just became pirates. But I think it ties really well into if you don't fit the norm, then you're excluded and you're automatically bad. But that doesn't, like, and I wrote down, your circumstances don't make you good or bad, your actions do.
Yeah, and like I kind of like how they didn't paint what the norm and like the like Elizabeth's life. She obviously wasn't very happy in that life, and
No.
like her father, like I don't think was painted in a negative light really at all, except for the fact that like he was really pushing for her to marry this man who I had completely forgotten is like years older than her.
There's a
Because
timeline.
Actually,
he's 8
not.
years older than her.
He's 8 years older. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not the craziest, but like
No.
when you see that opening scene and he's like at least a young adult and she's a kid, like it looks like
she's 12 there and he's 20, and Will
that
is 12 at that point.
That
too.
threw me for a loop. I was like, holy crap, he's like that much older.
I used to feel like it was so gross. Like as a kid watching this movie, I'm like, that is absolutely disgusting.
I don't think it's
but
gross.
Then as an adult, I'm like, that was so normal for the time.
It was normal, and like looking at that 8 years, honestly, was
it's
a little
out.
Yeah,
deal.
like he could have been 20 years older, and like all that. But obviously, it was just like her life and her living under the norm made it so like yeah she lives a cushy life, but she's being pushed to marry a man that she doesn't really love.
So that he can raise in status.
Yeah, so he can raise his status. I mean, I kind of think he genuinely has feelings for her.
Yeah.
Like, I think he does.
But I think it's also...
he's marrying the governor's daughter.
But also marrying her would raise his status.
That is true. Yeah, it is a duality, I believe, within that.
I think it shows that he has those feelings for her when he says to Will, "Don't think that you're the only man who loves Elizabeth."
Yeah, it shows it there, and then also at the very end where he's just like, I hope like when he tells that he knows that Will made the sword, like he says, he's like, I hope the man who takes as much takes as much care in his
with
craftsmanship.
The rest of his life.
Yeah.
The care he puts into the sword, he should put that care into the rest of
his
life.
Yeah.
Like that.
And that very much shows is just like he better, like it's kind of one of those kind threats, almost like a fatherly like kind of threat to like a kid dating.
Care of her.
Yeah, you better take care of her,
or brother.
Yeah, take care of her or I'll fucking gut you. Like, okay, let's go on. What do you guys want to cover next?
I kind of want to talk about story.
Story is a good next step. What do you got, Zach?
So I enjoyed the story, but there were a few moments where I was like asking questions. I was like, wait, why, like why was Will in the ocean, and like why was and then they were like answered later on in the movie, but like they had a lot of locked boxes, but they didn't let you know that there were locked boxes. And so there were just moments in the story where I was kind of confused as to what was going on. Because a lot of... Yeah?
I feel like at the times when they give you a little piece of information, were brilliant. Like, you don't know what's going on, but then they give you a piece of the puzzle, and you're like, oh! Yeah. And then, you get to put a little piece together on your own, and then a few minutes later, they'll give you another piece of information, like, oh, that makes so much more sense. And I actually loved that.
Yeah.
I hate the idea of, like, storytelling has to fit within a certain structure, and if you're not doing it this way, it's not good storytelling, because I think if you're getting your information across in a way that keeps the audience thinking critically throughout the entire story, regardless of whether it's giving them all the information up front so that they're aware of everything that's going to happen and then watching all of these dominoes topple, or giving them the dominoes toppling and then piecemeal feeding the information that set up those dominoes. If it works for the story, then that's what it needs to be. And this is a story where it's very character driven. Every single moment in this story is driven by Will, Elizabeth, and Jack, and their exact character beats.
I would also argue throw Barbossa into that, because like he's
I think Barbossa's. Oh, sorry, Jonah.
Oh, I was just saying you're also seeing that with Commodore Norrington and those people too. You're also seeing their drive for this as well.
In this first movie, you do see. I mean, it's driven by every single character that comes on screen. But the three main characters I think that they focus on throughout the whole movie is that triangle, that Will, Elizabeth, and Jack. And you get a little bit of a Barbossa here, but you get so much more of Barbossa come like the third movie.
Oh yeah, the third movie when he makes his return, and he's like sort of filling the pseudo Jack role for a little while
until
in the
they
movie.
Get Jack back.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so like the way that the information is given in the story fits with the way that the story is being told, because just as you're starting to question something about a character, they kind of feed you a little bit of that information that you're wanting to keep you hooked on that character and why they're doing the things they're doing and why they're in the places that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I really love how because I've watched the first movie a million times, but I always, like, as a kid, I had so many questions about it, and it didn't make sense. Certain things didn't make sense. And so going into watching this again, I had a lot of questions, and I was asking Josh, like, but when did this happen? What does this happen? But I had a lot of fun actually paying attention to the little clues they're giving and piecing together the timeline. Because just based off of the first movie, not incorporating any of the other movies, you can set an almost exact timeline from when Barbossa took control of the Black Pearl from Jack all the way up until when when Will was found floating in the ocean.
Yeah.
And how much time has passed. Like, you can set up an exact timeline.
Yeah, you're right. It throughout the whole movie, it pieces it together where it talks about how he was betrayed. They get to the island. They throw Bootstrap off the ship. Then they start distributing the gold and getting cursed. And a question that I had, he shipped the gold piece off to Will? Does that mean he was cursed when he was strapped and thrown?
Oh yeah.
Yes,
oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
You don't find. I mean, you can infer that in this movie, but they don't concrete say that in this movie.
Yeah.
In Dead Man's Chest, when Will finally meets his dad again, he does say.
Yeah, I remember now.
I sent it to you, and then they threw me overboard, and I couldn't die, and the weight of the ocean was crushing down upon me, and so I begged for release.
That's a crazy, like, Bootstrap Bill Turner's life is fucking.
He was like, so Will was shipped off, but then Will was in a shipwreck.
No, Will was living with his mother.
Will was living in England with his mother,
and and Bootstrap sent him the gold piece, and then after that, Will went to sea to search for his father.
And that's when he was on the ship that got attacked by pirates because they could sense the gold.
Yeah, but because he didn't fully fall into the water, they couldn't 100% sense where the coin was.
Yeah.
So
it couldn't quite signal strong enough to them.
And then having to deal with like a Navy ship and everything, they probably didn't want to at that time because that was still early on in their curse, so they may still have like some of that.
They were unsure on exactly.
Yeah, I mean, they'd only been cursed there for
2 years.
2 years tops.
Yeah, and then they at that point probably weren't so reckless when it came to fighting because they probably still had that like stopping point in their brain that
fear of maybe this isn't
where it's like when you see them at the end of the movie and they're fighting on the Navy ship, they just are like, they don't give a shit. They're like going on there, these guys
they don't until they realize that they're alive again, and then they just drop their weapons
because they're so scared.
That is a great point. I don't necessarily like. I think part of it is that I think the majority of the reason why they drop their weapons at the end, and this is a great story beat, is that they are so relieved because every single moment, every single time one of those pirates mentions the curse and talks about the curse, they make it feel like it's a living hell for them.
Oh, it is. I mean, they can't eat. Food turns to ash in their mouth.
They can't die.
Drink, it just
women don't give them
evaporates.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Like they have no joys.
And so when that happens, that would almost be like a sense of relief to be like, I don't even care if you're going to hang me tomorrow. I can feel again, like that sort of thing. Because like when Barbossa dies, and he's like he does the whole I feel cold. And it's like a happy sad because
he's so excited to be able to
feel again, but then it's immediately taken away from him again because he's dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's correct. Like it just like when I don't know things that people are talking about, it just frustrates me in general. So yeah, but I
yeah,
see
no,
the
I
value
understand
in
that
it,
feeling,
and it's
and I can see where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm. But like it's almost like I had the thought that it's like going on a treasure hunt that you get little hints and pieces, like pirates do. So I think that's kind of
actually a really good way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't watched this for ages and ages. I watched it probably 3 or 4 years ago, and coming back to rewatch this, I really enjoyed the story and felt really engaged throughout the whole entire thing. Um, so I'd 100% say that it's like that treasure hunt. They're giving you these little pieces to put together, and when I rewatched it, it was just
exciting.
I can't. It was really really engaging for me, and I enjoyed it even more because I paid more attention to it this time, and really tried to focus on stuff this time
Definitely.
instead of just watching it with my siblings and just kind of, oh yeah, this is a cool
Yeah.
movie, but really try to get into the story.
I,
Um,
I
and
honestly, with all of the movies we have reviewed so far, like I kind of feel the same thing. Like I like critically analyzing some of these movies, obviously, like I've never done before. So like it makes it a different watch.
yeah, and I'm not sure if it's because the last time I saw this I was like 15. So
That's a
I'm not sure
possibility, yeah.
if now I'm watching movies a different way because I'm an adult now, and I look at stuff differently or whatever. But this wasn't just for me now a fun movie to watch to be entertained. I was watching it, and there was stuff that I didn't even realize was going on. That when I rewatched it this time, I was like clicking, and I was like, "Oh, I never noticed that." And throughout the whole entire series, because when my sisters were up here, we watched everything. We watched all of the pirate movies, um, and I
Hell
was
yeah.
picking up on all these subtle things that I wasn't realizing, like things that aren't quite like, oh, that's so obvious. I know that, but it was just like tiny little story things, that they put in there that reference to another film, and so it was pretty cool. And then I don't know if you guys saw the if you saw this, it's a short film. It's about 8 minutes long, but it happens before Curse of the Black Pearl. And Disney put out, it's called Wedlocked. You can probably find it on YouTube because I showed it to my sister when she was up here and we found it on there. But basically, it shows it shows what happens, the reason why those two girls walk up to him in Tortuga and slap him in the face. It shows
awesome.
why
That's
they
pretty
did that.
cool, yeah.
Well, I mean,
And then it also shows why his ship is sinking in the first scene.
That's cool.
So it was pretty funny to watch the movie, and something that's such a funny moment. He's getting slapped in the face and his ship completely sinks and he just steps right off the top of the mast onto the dock. To watch that and then go back and watch this short film and then put that together makes the joke even more funnier.
Yeah, well,
Later on.
and I mean, when you think about it, like the whole reason that they have that first girl slap him, Scarlet is her name, by the way, is in the ride that this whole movie is based on. There's a scene where they're selling whores in the town square.
And they fight over the redhead.
And they fight over the redhead.
I want the redhead. That's the
literally.
That's not there anymore. They did take that out of the ride, and it's now different. But originally, that's what it was.
I mean, she's still there. She's just not being pulled off.
Yeah. That's cool.
Cool.
We'll have to watch it.
I'm gonna have to go watch it as soon as I finish Dead Men Tell No Tales.
All right. Well, we just spoke about how the story is character driven. Let's talk about acting and character.
A+.
Yeah. Obviously, you have to look at Johnny Depp's portrayal of Captain Jack Sparrow, and Captain Jack Sparrow is, specifically in this movie, is a very charismatic, not smart character.
No, but he is smart. He is the greatest pirate.
Well,
you've
okay,
ever seen.
he's smart when it comes to combat, and he's smart when it comes to talking to people and tricking people.
He's really good at getting out of sticky situations on the fly.
Well, and
he's really good at improvising,
distracting people while he's setting up his escape. Like, right?
Yeah.
He talks.
So he has a very
narrow
knowledge.
If you watch him while he's talking, every movement he makes is to set up for an escape, and it's almost like watching him talk is like watching those scenes from the Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes movies, where you watch him break down exactly what's going to happen. You're just watching Johnny Depp bullshit his way across the screen while slightly moving things.
Yeah.
And you don't notice that's what he's doing.
You don't really notice what's going on until he starts like actually triggering the escape, and then people are like tripping over furniture and like gold pieces are going everywhere. With like, if you'd been paying attention, you'd know that these things would happen.
Yeah, you're right. So he's smart in that area. He's very well knowledgeable and
he's
very well experienced in that field because he's been doing that his entire life. But like obviously like I don't know. It just like he's more charismatic than a genius. That was the point I was trying to get across. And he is played like what you were just saying. Everything you just said on top of being odd. Just being odd, and it's almost fourth wall-y breaking when they mention it a few times in the film, where like when he's talking to the first mate,
Gibbs.
Yes, and he's just like, oh yes, that explains and he just does the whole, like he does, I feel like it's Orlando Bloom just doing an impression of Johnny Depp in that situation, but it's, and he's like, no, that doesn't explain it. He was like that before. I wrote this note down. One of my favorite things, it was a scene, I think it was when they were first on the boat with the whole crew, and Jack Sparrow's just kind of looking around, and he looks up in the air, and like he says a line and then walks off, and it does a scene cut. But right before the scene cut, Will and Gibbs look up in the same way, like being like, what the fuck was he looking at? Like, and so it's little things like that make it so like, because like I feel like people in real life do a whole lot of those things. And as you go down with each character, it's just like, obviously, like you look at Will Turner and everything like that. He's very like they each have their own almost different parts of the world where you can tell these people come from. Like Will was raised for the last handful of years adjacent to upper society, and being a blacksmith and everything.
Who needs?
Yeah, he was raised adjacent to society while wanting and pining, obviously being in love for years with Elizabeth, and Elizabeth having some of those same feelings for him, but also wanting the mysterious and the chaotic nature of like piracy. But being within that, and then Jack rolls in, and he's just like, literally, he fucking hops in because he's on top of a fucking sinking boat, And one of the best character introductions, I want to say,
Oh yeah, it perfectly embodies
like it
Jack
shows
as a
him
character.
being majestic and epic. Then it does a slight zoom out. He's on a tiny boat
Sinking
and it's
ships.
sinking. And like,
well, and then he immediately, like, when he realizes that him shoveling water out isn't going to actually fix anything, he just goes back to standing on the mast and then walks off the mast
to make it
onto the
seem like he
dock.
planned it the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all, the three big characters all do a very good job. I feel in showing their characters, and like I think Jack shows like the least character growth because I think he's pretty like Jack from the first handful of scenes of what he is, and he kind of sticks
Yeah.
to that throughout
Yeah,
the
he
entire
doesn't really
movie.
change.
But with his influence, like it makes it so that Will is able to come out and say he loves Elizabeth, embraces his swordsmanship, and the fact that obviously he seems like he was destined to become a pirate,
Yeah.
and also makes it so Elizabeth is able to take more plunges, like literally breaking out, escaping from her father, talking to pirates, and then participating in a fight against pirates themselves too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that like you loved every single character, like the antagonist and the protagonist, and they were all like
Oh yeah.
antagonists to each
Oh,
other.
I was about to
But,
talk
like,
about like Barbosa and his whole crew. It's
They're
just like,
awesome.
well, like obviously it's like like there's the two guys. I forget their actual names,
Pentel
but
and Rigetti.
yes, who are like the main pirates because you see most screen time of them.
Yeah, I mean
and
they're the they're the they're the comedic relief in a comedy adventure movie.
yes, um, yeah, they made every character likable. Yeah, I agree with you, Zach.
I wanted to say that like you were rooting for all three sides. Like you wanted
Yeah.
all
Oh, yeah,
three
for sure.
sides to
Yeah,
get what they
there
want.
was a point where I'm like, man, I feel so bad for Barbosa and his crew because, like, sure, they're assholes, sure, they're mutineers and everything like that, but who would you truly wish that upon? Like,
Nobody. Well,
yeah.
you can't even get mad at Barbosa for doing the things that he's doing because he really is just trying to make not just his life but his crew's life livable again.
So it's so
Yeah.
personable when he's like coming up and he's like, the first thing I think I'm going to do, eat a bushel of apples, and I'm like,
Yeah.
holy crap! Just thinking about how he can't even take that at the moment, like he
Yeah.
can't enjoy apple, and he's carrying around an apple for like the last third of the movie, waiting for his curse to fucking go away so he can
He
immediately take bite out of that apple.
he has an apple on his person from the moment he first offers it to Elizabeth.
Yeah, because he dies
Yeah,
with
yeah.
it, and it rolls out of his hand when he
It's
dies.
true. Yeah, it's like half the movie he has the apple then.
Yeah.
Um,
He also
Because
has a bowl of apples
you
in
can
his
even
office.
see it sitting in his chest area of his jacket when she runs out of the captain's quarters after he offers her the
really?
thing, and he comes
Yeah.
out and he goes, "You best start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one." Which is
Yeah.
like my favorite line of the entire fucking movie. It encapsulates the
the
entire
mood.
movie.
Yeah, that shifts when you like, because you had kind of an eerie like something's going on with these guys anyway, and it didn't
Yeah.
100% reveal it until that moment. That's the big reveal of the movie to say, hey, we're fucking cursed. This is the curse of the Black Pearl. Like,
Yeah.
That was such a cool scene too.
It is, right?
I
And,
wanna talk about the skeletons. We can move right into CGI.
I was
Yeah.
gonna suggest
yeah,
that as
I
well.
want to talk about this too.
I loved like the skeletons. They fit their time, but they were good for their time that this movie came
yeah,
out.
I still
They've
think
held
that
up pretty well.
I still think they held up mostly, but obviously like there were a few scenes where like there was like a lot of movement and stuff like that. You kind of could be like, yeah.
The time that it gets kind of sketchy for me, not with any of the pirates who are skeletons throughout the entire movie, but when Jack is a skeleton.
Yeah,
And it
that's what I
shows
was.
him, and his eyes I don't
look
know what it is, but every time
they look off. Yeah.
every time
Yeah.
somebody tries to do Johnny Depp's eyes in CGI in these 5 movies, it just doesn't look good.
They can't. He has one of those features that you can't replicate.
I
Yeah.
wish they didn't. I wish they didn't put the eyes in the skeletons. I wish the eyes were out of the skeletons
just eye cavities.
yeah. Well, like
Well, I mean, in some of them there are even ones that have eyes, not just like Rigetti who only has one eye. But like as they're hitting moonlight, some of them look like they are just skeletons, like they're
Yeah.
not fully
I'm not sure what the
functioning.
choice is on that, but like to me, I think like a skeleton with eyeballs is
It's
creepier than a
creepy.
skeleton without.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Because
to
then
give
it
it a
can
more
watch you,
of like
Zach.
it gives it more of an undead feel than just a skeleton feel, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they seem more like zombies.
Yeah.
I think Disney did something really smart with the way that the curse works. They made it so that they're only skeletons in the moonlight,
Yeah.
which means that they only have to render out that CGI in darkness.
It helps
Yeah.
hide
Which
a
help-
lot of it.
Which I think is one of the reasons
Yeah.
why that CGI still holds up, because the CGI that you can see looks really fucking good, but a lot of stuff that normally would be a little bit harder, even still today, to produce, is covered in shadow and darkness because it doesn't have to be in broad daylight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And
It
I will. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, you go ahead, Jonah.
Oh, I was just gonna say that for the most part, the rendering was fairly easy for them to do with the skeletons because they are all there except for in a few scenes minus the big fight scene in the cave. They are all like in direct moonlight except for when like Barbosa walks out into the moonlight, and some things like that. So it's pretty easy to have just gotten a clean plate and animated these skeletons and rendered it out. In the one instance when he takes the wine and he drinks it and it just pours through him,
oh yeah.
that part looked, you can tell with the moonlight reflection that they had on the liquid and stuff, stood out to me as that is,
Yeah.
that was bad.
Oh, I
But
I loved it. Well, like it was.
oh no, it's a great effect and everything, but you can tell that it is, obviously you can tell that that's CGI, but it looked really
It looked like
computer.
CGI. It didn't look like, actual emulating real life.
Yeah, but I
Um,
think like again, like you said, like 2003, right? Yeah. This
2003, yeah.
early 2000s like the dark times I like to
Well,
call
okay.
of CGI, where it was just
Compare it to a movie who came out 2 years later that I will trash on the CGI from this movie until the day I die.
what movie?
Revenge of the
Scorpion
Sith.
King.
Oh yeah, you're right.
No, Scorpion King came out
Don't talk about that
a year
forbidden
earlier,
movie.
or 2 years earlier. It came out in like
Yeah,
2001.
like here's
Scorpion King is not good CGI either.
No.
But Revenge of the Sith, everything in it looks like CGI. Every
well,
single
that was the whole
CGI
prequel.
moment.
Like that, the late
yeah.
90s, from like 97 to about probably 2007, 2008, maybe even 2010. Like I call that like the dark ages of CGIs because every movie studio wanted to insert and use CGI as much as possible because the technology
Yeah.
every few months was jumping like
Yeah.
leaps and strides.
Yeah, well, and
but
you
but
can
they
see it here because, that Disney money
yeah.
came in for Pirates, and that CGI looks like stuff that really, honestly, wasn't mainstream until 2010.
Yeah, almost like 7 years later, almost a decade later, because
Like,
like
I think putting this CGI up against a lot of the smaller effects in Avatar, this would hold up better than Avatar's CGI.
Well, just before we get on to another topic, I just wanted to say this. the most impressive part of all of the CGI is when they get into the cave and they start fighting.
Yeah, and it's back
Because
and forth.
yeah, that is
Yeah.
really
I
seamless
yeah,
between
I
yeah,
love the scene. Like I'm going to incorporate with that scene cuz it's technically like when the whole sequence, like that fight combined with the pirates walking on the floor, sea
Oh, I
floor.
Yeah.
love that.
But like I had never noticed before, and I guess maybe it's because like it's ingrained in your brain by this time that that's how the curse works. But like the pirates that are underneath the shadow of the ship and the ropes, the parts that are underneath the shadow turn back into human.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. I
And
noticed that this time too.
yeah, I didn't remember that, and I don't think I've ever noticed that before because I think it was just like subconsciously my brain was turned off to that fact. But looking at that, I'm like, like that's neat. Like you like
Yeah.
seeing that and like, yeah,
Also,
On that.
the
Oh,
underwater
sorry.
scenes were brilliant. I loved the underwater scenes. No, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if the one where Jack and Will are underneath the canoe is CGI, but the one where
That
the
is
skeletons are walking under is definitely CGI.
yeah.
Yeah. No,
Um,
Zach, they actually had skeletons walk underneath a ship.
yeah,
yeah.
Zach, didn't
With
you
that
hear
Disney
about that?
money, they fucking have been resurrecting people for years. Come
Yeah.
on.
And the explosions were great. Um, love the
Yeah.
explosions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know why this is a detail that I like so much, but like especially the fact when the pearl attacks the port at first, and you hear the cannon shot first, and then like the Commodore throws the governor down, and then you hear the cannonball hit, like with
Yeah.
like that delay. I love that because a lot of times you hear that and it's almost an instantaneous, like you hear the explosion and it hits.
Yeah, that
Where
actually so we could look just within this franchise and see times where this first movie they're really good about making sure that those cannons sound off and then the cannonball has time to travel through the air and then the cannonball hits and a lot of times they're actually like focusing on that cannonball or the caltrops
yeah,
um and so you're watching it and then you're hearing it as it's hitting things in I don't know if it was the second or the third one, but there's a couple of fight scenes between ships where you're just hearing things and then immediately watching explosions.
oh, that's unfortunate.
And it's
Well,
it's not like it didn't bring me out of the movie. Like I still really enjoyed the movie, but it just they could have done that
It
in
is,
the
yeah,
Curse of the Black Pearl as well, but they didn't. They went that extra step.
yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, like, I don't think they definitely didn't expect it to like, in terms of money, like that was a lower budget film, and
Yeah,
like,
I'm not so sure. Hold on, let me look.
well, I mean, I don't like if you look at it, they definitely didn't expect it to turn into a franchise.
No, because
Like,
that first movie. I mean, there's ties.
I mean,
Um,
yes, there are ties, like obviously with Jack's compass, and it's
yeah.
like here he's going off in an adventure, but it's like it's one of those open end things where it's like it's open ended but not really open ended at the same time.
Oh, I don't know
Um,
if I'd call this a lower budget movie, even by like Disney standards. At the time, this would have been a blockbuster. This is 140 million is what they spent on it.
oh, I always was under the impression they spent like 60 in the 60
Well,
Yeah.
million, but yeah,
yeah, because our film that we did, Killing for a Penny, was low
10
budget. And we
million
had like
dollars.
And I still haven't
yeah.
gotten
So
paid for it, bro.
back on track. That, anyways, I was just blown away and impressed at the seamlessness of that because if you watch behind the scenes, all of the action that was done was by characters in costume. The pirates going through the moonlight was
Hmm.
actually Jack and Barbosa and their stunt doubles doing that stuff. So
Yeah.
then you give that to an editor, what he's got to do is create the 3D model, and then he's got to track the shot, put the 3D model in there, and they didn't have tracking suits on like they did later on in for Davy Jones.
Yeah.
So then he's got to match all of that and animate that to fit, and it happens so fast and it's so seamless that I was just like, my gosh, I would hate to have done this job,
Yeah, well,
because
and like they don't have tracking suits on, but um, as I'm learning more about editing and specifically doing effects like this, I'm learning that you don't need a tracking suit to do good tracking. You just need a couple of really good standout points on the person that you can pull from so that you can keep tracking that throughout. And so they were lucky in the fact that they were working with pirates that have
yeah,
dangly bits all over from like
yeah.
all the treasure and accolades that they've put on themselves. And so they have a lot of places to track from.
Well, yeah, let me rephrase that. They did not have motion tracking. So
Yeah.
all of the animation of the skeleton was done by hand and not the motion tracking that they would have done later on for Davy Jones and that type of thing. So
Well,
that
yeah, no,
that
I'm
was the
I'm I'm
tracking that
not
was
I'm
done.
not saying that like that didn't happen. But what I'm saying is with the software that was even available then, as long as you have a point that you can track onto within that software, you don't need a tracking suit per se. It was just easier to do and so it became more common.
Yeah, and then the painting out too.
Yeah.
That would have been difficult because I don't. They would have obviously had the clean plates because you have to get a clean plate to
Hmm.
do that.
Wait.
Um,
Pirates don't fucking paint. What the fuck are you guys talking about?
but here's one thing: is if they matched everything perfectly, then because it happened so fast, what could have happened is if they matched the movement frame by frame, then they could have just overlaid that skeleton over top of that actor and not necessarily have to paint out the actor entirely.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, you can see in some of the shots, you can see through that see through to the background and stuff. But when they're fighting and the camera's flying all over the place and you're cutting back and forth and you're seeing them kind of do this really I thought really brilliantly choreographed fight. Um,
Oh yeah.
Yes, definitely.
then it just was amazing to me because when I first watched it, I was just getting into to doing special effects, and I was still editing movies together on Windows Movie Maker. Coming back to watching this film after I've been through the hardships of trying to track in a flame to a lighter that does not have a flame, or trying to paint stuff out, or
Hmm.
it was just really like I didn't look at it as a movie anymore. I was like, this is like a really great piece of art. This is a really cool piece of artwork, is how I looked at it because of how brilliantly everything came together in that last scene.
I think we've talked about a couple of things that kind of bring me to I think we should move into cinematography.
Okay.
And I've got one massive point in the cinematography that really just like stood out to me.
Okay.
Every time they do a close up of Johnny Depp's hands, he is doing something that specifically drives a story point forward with his hand. And it's not just like, because sometimes in movies you'll see like a close up so that they can zoom out to show like exactly who's there. But Captain Jack has like such definitive style that the second you see his hands, they're his. And there's a moment when he's in the jail in Port Royal, and all of the attack is going on, and there's moonlight coming in and hitting the ground, and he's reaching for the bone, and his hand goes into the moonlight, and nothing happens. Right, so you immediately, if you know what moonlight is in this movie, which at this point you shouldn't, you can tell Jack's just a normal person. But then, like, not even 3 seconds later, two pirates come in and they're talking to Jack, and they step into the moonlight, and you can see that they're not human.
Oh wow, yeah.
And it's also
And then
foreshadowing
it is foreshadowing.
because he
And then
reaches
there's
for the bone, and it's
yeah.
it's like
Oh, I've been reaching for the bone all day. Am I right, boys?
Well, and then the last time they zoom in on his hand, the, the last time they zoom in on his hand, you see him reaching into Cortez's chest and picking up 4 pieces of gold. And then it cuts to Barbosa, and then it comes back to his hand, and he's counting, and he drops 3 pieces of gold. And then you watch
see
as
him do
he palms the
Yep, you
4th
see
piece
him
of gold.
push it into palm. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That's way cool.
And so,
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, just like the forethought that went into every single shot, even shots of just an actor's hand.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, is used often, but just it felt so subtle every time his hands are on screen. If you're not paying attention, if you don't know the story beats that are coming up, you might miss these moments.
I want to talk about how the lighting felt like it was in the time period. Like, because sometimes in different movies, the lighting doesn't feel quite right, but the lighting definitely, like, I specifically remember the scene where she's talking about not wanting to marry him, and there's the candlelight, and I just thought it was really cool.
The candlelight, and then the light from the fire where they're heating up the coals to
Yeah,
under her.
there was a lot of natural lighting, and I'll throw like firelight into being natural lighting and everything in there too.
Yeah.
And obviously that, like we keep hitting on, that's a very important aspect of this movie is light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moonlight specifically, but like that is such a large focus that it didn't feel that there was any studio lighting. It didn't feel that there was artificial lighting. It felt very much like there's candle lighting. There was a couple torch scenes, and like or like the light reflecting off of the water. It felt 100% natural. Yeah.
And
that
the
is something I love about all of the night scenes is that not overly blue like Terminator type light
Yeah.
that's coming through the
Yeah, we're
not
not
that
pushing
type
into
of
the
stuff.
teal and orange color grading of everything. We're trying to keep things looking natural.
But it's
Yep.
also not so dark that it fits into the DC Universe movies.
You can
Yep.
see things happening on screen.
So did anybody else have something to say about cinematography?
I don't believe so. No, I don't have anything else to add. Like that, I thought it was.
I do.
Well, I guess I'll add that a lot of the shots, a lot of the long shots and like panning shots of like the main characters felt. This is just going to be a vague term. It felt adventurous, if that makes any
It felt
fucking sense.
epic.
Yeah, epic.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a much better word. It felt like, yes, here is an epic movie. Here is an adventurous movie. Here is just like, yeah, we're on a like we're pirates. We're on a ship. We're going to fucking intercept these ghost pirates. Like hell yeah.
Yeah, I think like what you're talking about is littered throughout this movie. They do a lot of those establishing shots of multiple characters, standing epically. Every time I think of that outside of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, my mind immediately goes to that scene where you first see dinosaurs in daylight in the first Jurassic Park.
Yes.
And they're zoomed in on the Jeep, and then they zoom out and pan, and you just see everything, and it all feels epic. But that's like every single time you see multiple characters in this movie, that's kind of what it feels like.
Definitely.
Before we move on from cinematography, I wanted to touch on the color grading.
Oh, I've got something about the color grading too. But really quick before you get to that, I just want to say one more thing about that moving epic shot thing. It is my opinion is they used the moving shots really, really well to convey that epicness throughout the whole entire series. But
Yeah.
especially with this, you get that sense of epicness when you have that moving shot of going in on a ship, or flying over, um, you know those type of flyover shots and everything that you get, really give you a sense. Or like when they pull back and you see, later on in the series, you see these two ships and they're fighting, and there's that smoke and everything, really gives that sense of that epicness and stuff. So I think they really used the movement really well in this, and not overuse stuff, overuse that movement.
Yeah.
Um, but I think they used it really well to help drive that story and create this atmosphere of that feel. Is something that I've always loved about the pirate movies. And I've watched all these other movies, but I get that feeling when I watch, the pirate movies, and some of, Steven Spielberg's work, which is another
Yeah.
thing for another time. But, with like the Jurassic Park and that type of stuff, I really
Yeah.
get that feeling, that I don't normally get with even some of my favorite Marvel films. And I think that has to do with not only the music, the acting, the story, but also how they use the camera movement, to help show that epicness.
Yep.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, moving on from just camera shots and things, the color grading in this movie, I think they did something really brilliant, that again is subtle. When you're following Jack, and it's Jack centric story beats, the color grading is bright, and showing this is the Caribbean, and this is this tropical beautiful place. When you're following Barbosa, all of a sudden the colors kind of feel a little muted. You're kind of seeing the
Yeah.
world
Oh
through
wow.
Barbosa's eyes. There's haze everywhere, and so you go from having these bright popping colors following Jack to having this muted thing with Barbosa, and then you go to like Will. If you're following Will, everything's still bright because most likely he's near Jack, but when it's focused on Will, things are uh, still fully saturated, but they're darker colors.
Yep.
And it just, I think the feel of following each character through just the color used when viewing the world through their eyes is super well done here, and not something that I've noticed in a whole lot of other movies. There's not a lot of times where I'm watching a movie and I'm like, "Oh, we're viewing the world through this character's eyes because the colors look like this."
Yeah. Just like on a point that because I know it's gotten criticism time and time again. Like if we talk about like a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
Yeah.
the Marvel Cinematic Universe, most of their movies are very muted in colors. You get a color palette obviously with like the characters and everything, but it's almost as if like they're afraid to go with that extra sharpness, if that makes sense. That extra
Yeah,
change.
I
Like
mean,
it all has the same feel is what I'm going for. Whereas like what you're saying in here, this movie very much is like here's this scene and it may have most of the same characters, but we know whose point of view we're viewing it from.
yeah, which kind of relates back to story and giving you like Jack isn't always a reliable narrator, right?
No.
And so
No.
when the color grading becomes bright and vibrant, you kind of start questioning the things that you're seeing on screen, because chances are they're not going to turn out exactly how you're
Yeah.
thinking they are going to turn out. Um, Will is a very honest, reliable person. So when you're viewing the eyes, when the colors get dark but they're still fully saturated, you can trust what you're seeing.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's just it. Yeah, it was something that hit me last night. Since I've started editing recently, I've gotten really into the color grading and like why colors should be the way that they are. And so watching this movie and seeing that little
Slight changes.
change in scene to scene was just, it was like cocaine for me. I was just on cloud nine.
And that on top of the actual cocaine you were fucking doing.
I only did 3 lines, Chris.
What?
Jesus
What?
Christ.
Are you cutting back? Are you fucking
Josh, you
being
have to
weak
do at
on me?
least 6.
Yeah, you son of a bitch.
I will say, I have for me, this is within within the pirate franchise. This, to me, what this movie is to me is like what Hocus Pocus is to Chloe. I feel
Perfect and flawless in every way.
yes, except for one thing. And this is
Oh, no.
this is the one thing that bothers me about the pirate
The
franchise,
big
which
reveal.
I noticed, is when they're in certain scenes, not every scene, certain scenes, the candlelight or the firelight feels too yellow. It feels too much like
Really?
the electric candles that you get and that you can put on. It's more yellow than it is
But
that
didn't you know they
actual.
had those back then?
Oh,
I did
I
not
did not.
notice a weird yellow.
Yeah,
Um,
you can see 2 guys in the background pedaling a power bike, powering all the power on the boat.
but
Just got
that
Nikola Tesla.
the only reason why I say that is because um I was I went through a craze where I was like, ooh, look, I can have candles but no fire, so I was buying them for like, all this stuff, and I had a whole container of them because I would
So
use
you
them in.
recognize that hue.
Yeah, and so I recognize that hue as being that artificial candlelight. When you see it compared next to an actual flame, is 100% unnatural, and that was kind of the vibe of that lighting in some of these scenes. Not all of them, but some of them. Like when they're in
Mm-hmm.
the cave and they've got torches, that that looks great, But like when they're in Tortuga, and then in some of the other stuff when they go into the tavern, stuff just looks a little bit more yellow. And my guess is that it's the color grade, because if you're shooting with real fire, um, we can see in other places that fire looks great, but just in certain
Yeah,
scenes.
I don't think in scenes like the taverns that they were shooting with real fire. I think they
Yeah,
lit those scenes. Um and so
Artificially.
yeah.
Yeah.
but
I yeah.
but they do it in a way that you do not that like Chris said, you don't feel like it's studio lighting.
No, you
They
don't at all.
it
It's still
feels
done in a
natural.
way
It
that
just
feels like
and
it's fire.
yeah,
And like
and
the only reason that like like even you noticed that is because you had that experience with that specific experience that somewhat trained your eye to see that. And like so 80 80% or more of the people who watch the movie won't catch that sort of thing.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and another thing is with some of these scenes, it feels natural, but it feels kind of otherworldly for me. So maybe they did that to get a certain mood to come across.
That could very
Like
well be because like
this
a lot of
is
the obviously a lot of the editing choices that they chose was to make it so like you're on an adventure but like there's mysterious shit like ghosts and pirates curses and stuff like that
yeah,
out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean
yeah,
like
and
a lot of the color choice, a lot of the lighting choice kind of ties into I told Chloe as we were starting the 5th movie, this is Disney's horror movies. This is the closest Disney had to like true horror movies.
yeah,
Um and that's what the Pirates movies are. They don't feel like horror movies, but when you look at them, they've got the same color grade and color choice and palette as a lot of horror movies.
Listen, the
Uh,
Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy, that was a fucking scary movie.
You know what? I agree, actually.
Yeah, I know
are
that
we
that scares me every time I think about it, to be
are we
perfectly
gonna are
honest.
we gonna review that one day?
Haunted
Next year.
Mansion, maybe next October.
Yeah, next year we'll do that.
Okay.
That'll be our scary fucking
That'll
movie.
be
The scare.
Our Halloween
Yeah,
episode.
I don't know if I can make it through that one, guys. I'm too fucking scared.
So, we've talked about
What's
things
next?
we can see, but what about things we
Writing.
can hear? The
Oh my
music
god, this score.
is so
I mean, like,
good.
Yeah, the Pirates of
It
the
is
Caribbean
stuck
like
in my
score
head.
obviously knocked it out of the park. Not only to be franchise defining, but like when people think of pirate music, like there's obviously like
Yeah.
old time like sea shanties and stuff like that, but this is almost like top first three that
Well,
people
and
would always think of.
so when people say pirates, immediately I start getting that bum 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 bum
Dun
bum
dun dun
ba
dun dun dun
um
dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun.
But then the very next thought that I have is we're devils and blackguards and really bad eggs drink up me hearties yo
Yeah,
ho.
yeah, yeah.
And
It has that like, and like she's singing that like the song at the very beginning when she's a kid
Yeah.
too.
yeah,
Like it very much, all of the score of this whole like fits with the action of the movie. Like
yeah,
you hear the underscore happening, and it's just like you feel like, okay, here's something building up. Or like if it's like kind of a longer scene that there isn't a whole lot of action, like if you're listening to that scene between Elizabeth and Barbossa when they're in his cabin and everything, it's just
mhm.
eerie and just very very low and very very subtle. And then it like, as he starts getting like more and more revealing about like their what the fuck's going on, you hear it climb more and more
Yeah.
until it reaches the peak of the music, and it's like dun 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 dun, like, and with the whole of the crew doing their work and
Yeah,
being
she
and
runs
yeah.
out and there's all the skeletons happening and the music's like in its groove and in its
Yeah,
beat at that point.
it
And
is. Yeah.
the timing is absolutely perfect.
I wanted to mention how beautiful, like, and how much planning it takes to match the sword clangs to the beat of the music.
Oh
Ooh,
yeah,
yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
It really helps you get into the feel of not only
Yeah.
the action but the music. Having those two connected in that way, and it I think it's great.
Yeah,
I think it's
like
awesome.
there are certain movie scores that I will always like. It always gets me like pumped to have the musical scores that, you know, like when that stuff fucking just starts popping off, you know that there's actual shit happening in the movie. Like the only thing that's popping to my head right now is like if you hear the Avengers theme, like, you know, there's like, you hear that, like if you're in the other room, you know something epic is
Yeah.
happening on screen. Like, you know, I like it's either doing a panning shot of like them in the middle of New York, or like with in Pirates, like dun 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 dun, dun, like they're like, most of it's like when they're doing like sword dueling and everything like that, and like
It's either
true,
sword duels or like majestic shots of
or
one
when
of the main characters.
like when Jack is trying to escape,
Yeah.
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 which happens way
Constantly.
yeah, he's always fucking escaping.
No, the sound design and the score to this movie are just absolutely brilliant. And I was talking with Chloe earlier, and I was like, Hans Zimmer, the guy who composed the score for this,
He's a
2000
genius.
to like 2015 for Hans Zimmer was like 1974 to 1993 or 4 for John Williams.
Yeah,
Just everything he did
Was gold.
was beautiful. You've
yeah,
got the Pirates movies that have those just hitting scores and soundtracks that are just brilliant after brilliant after brilliant, and then you've got, you know, the more subtle. A lot of people are still going to tie it intrinsically to Robert Downey Jr., but the Sherlock Holmes movies, you know,
yeah,
when you hear that, you see Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock. You don't see Benedict Cumberbatch or Henry
yeah.
Cavill. Um, and then like even going into the Batman movies, you know, like
Oh
Batman
fuck.
Begins and Dark Knight,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he just
yeah.
had really good, consistent scores and soundtracks, and he was doing things that completely tied in and helped form an entire generation's view on what scores should sound like.
Yeah.
Honestly,
He
when you said Batman music, I didn't think of that. I thought of no 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 Batman.
Honestly, a banger in itself. Okay, to be perfectly honest. Mwah.
Jonah, did you have a comment?
Oh, I was just gonna say how much that music helps complement the story, but how much
Yeah.
it is just by itself. If you just
Yeah.
listen to that music, especially the Jack Sparrow's theme, I guess, is whenever he's doing something, then it's the da da dun dun da da dun dun da da da.
Yeah, he's a
There's
pirate.
that. Yeah. But then even like some of the other stuff, like Davy Jones, his theme that he has on his
Oh,
little
yeah.
his box, that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
an extremely beautiful theme that they
Yeah.
have. And listening to that, like when on my way up to Salt Lake from St. George, I just listened to that music. And if you just listen and focus on like the strings and the trumpets and all that type of stuff, you can you get that feel without even seeing the pictures
You can
and hearing
visualize the
that
whole
stuff.
movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you I
Yeah.
can hear a song and I can put the scene with that, and it's just what Hans Zimmer did was amazing with that whole entire score.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
it's one of my
It
favorites to date.
elevated the movie.
it
Like,
really
Yeah.
does,
yeah.
and not just the movie, but Pirates. Period. Like, last week we talked about how Treasure Island super influenced Pirates of the Caribbean. But the last time I read Treasure Island, I listened to the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack while I was reading.
That makes sense because like the music
Yeah.
sounds, even if you have no context, like
It's pirate music.
you feel the music and it's like, yeah, it feels it's a first and foremost adventure music,
Yeah.
Mhm.
obviously,
This
and then it's
this
just
is
like,
what you would hear
yeah,
searching for treasure or being on the high sea. Like, it's just
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
oh,
It was
It's
so
good.
good.
it's good.
Um, with like the music, and it made me think of Jack like swinging, uh and I wanted to talk about sets, but more specifically the moving set pieces. I
Yeah,
I thought those
that
were very well done.
yeah, it ties back into what we were saying about how like Jack Sparrow was he was always planning and trying to figure out his way of escaping out of a shitty situation, which he was always in a shitty situation.
That's
Like,
why he's so good at getting out of them.
yeah, because he like he stumbles upon them, and so like it's like the usage of like within the first couple of scenes, him using that cannon that was being lowered onto a ship to get away, and then the cannon breaking the dock, so that caused hell. Him being flung over and that causing hell, and like him doing all that. Just that small, compact, like 10 square yards of area,
Yeah.
so much happened right there that was critical for the set to be fairly on point.
Oh yeah.
I would have to reset it just to film it all again.
Yeah. Can you
Yeah.
imagine having to reset that cannon like 4 or 5 times?
Yeah, because like
Oh my god.
even if
And
they made it so that those
smashing a dock.
even if it was like maybe it was a half weight cannon and those boards were meant to break more, still having to reset that shit like multiple times would be such a
So
pain.
much.
And then
It was so
and then
much.
it's non-stop after that. Like he goes into the blacksmith, everything was interactable in that blacksmith blacksmith's home. And then there was the donkey with the wheel. Everything was critical
Poor
with the
donkey.
set. Everything seemed to be like thought of, and quite possibly like part of me likes to think in situations like if they did reshoots of that scene where he's like rummaging trying to find a tool to break himself out, like what if they did multiple takes and like Johnny Depp just did different things every single time.
Probably
I'm
did.
pretty
like-
sure
think-
that's what happened.
I mean
Like,
part of
think-
me like
yeah.
looking into that scene, I feel like that almost certainly happened. And I was like man, they made it so all this stuff was interactable. Everything that was metal was that was supposed to be metal was metal. And it made it feel like obviously this is a world where things are going on besides um, Jack
Yeah.
Sparrow and the gang.
Yeah, I mean, there's some movies where like, actually, we could talk about a Marvel movie here, and quite honestly, my favorite Marvel movie, Winter Soldier.
Yep.
When you're watching you can see people moving, but set pieces aren't often moving unless the heroes are directly interacting with them in
Yeah.
Winter Soldier. In the Pirates, we'll talk about just Black Pearl, but really it goes for the whole franchise. Set pieces are constantly moving regardless of whether characters are interacting with
Yeah.
them or not.
Because that gives a sense of realism to it.
Yeah,
it gives a sense
that's
that
what
like
happens in the real world.
Yeah, because like the world doesn't revolve around any single being. It's like you have to take. Well, it revolves around. I couldn't make a joke. I'm sorry, guys. I just couldn't think of it. My improv died there.
Finish your thought.
But yeah, no, it doesn't go around any single being. It definitely makes us. It's just like, okay, wow, this just so happens that they're running through here, and so is there, or that happened to be there. It felt like the world was alive, and I love feeling that the world, like, it's like this movie is supposed to have, like, obviously it has the mystical aspects of it and the magical aspects, but it is supposed to have a good chunk of it grounded within realism.
Well,
and
because there's characters that keep questioning everything that's happening.
Yeah,
like,
even
this
to the
can't
like
be real.
like she's yelling at them, it's like, oh, they're cursed, and he's just like, oh yes, we were told, ha ha ha, closes it, and like 10 minutes later they're getting fucked by zombies, pirates. It's like,
I mean, that's because Beckett is an idiot, but
yeah.
Or Bennett is the one that puts her in the room.
Yeah.
Beckett's in the second movie. But yeah, no, I just the way that the sets moved, the way that the sets interacted, not just with the actors, but with each set piece. It did feel real. It felt grounded. Again, you can see that Disney money hard at work. Just everything is like super researched and built to hell.
Well, here's something that I found out recently that was actually really interesting. And this completely goes to something that I don't know if we covered or not. It kind of goes under the character thing. The fact that Jack Sparrow runs around and says savvy all the time,
Yeah.
that is actually a historical thing that people said in that context that he uses it, which was really cool because I knew that, okay, yeah, they wrote him this thing that's his tagline or whatever, and more people should have been using that in that context back in the day.
Yeah,
But it was
language in this film was pretty on point, and also just as a side note, like a lot of time, like his savvy line was used comedically, but it was used comedically because to us as modern day viewers, it's out of place and doesn't seem like it seems like he's just saying a word to say the word.
Well, yeah, because like really him just saying savvy is just shorthand for are you savvy to what I'm telling you?
Yeah.
Right, but
you
like
understand?
No, I don't think it even feels out of place that other people weren't using it regularly because it is very strong slang, and a lot of the other characters that you come in contact with are formal people, right? You've got like Norrington, who is a Commodore. He is, in the military and high up. He's not going to be he's in the British Navy and high up. He's not going to be using a whole lot of slang.
It's like a general saying, that's kind of sus.
You've got the governor, who's a governor. He's an older man. He's probably not going to be using a whole lot of slang. Elizabeth grew up in wealthy
should have seen
family.
the early days.
Jesus. Okay, and then like Will, who is trying to be part of that society, and Barbossa, who thinks that he is part of that society. So you've got a whole lot of people who are looking down on the fact that there's a whole lot of slang being thrown around by Jack. Like, everybody looks at Jack like he's an idiot.
Because he is.
And a lot of times he is. But really, he's just honestly being natural with his language. He's not trying to put on airs at any point.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And again, it just makes it feel like more real, more relatable. Like that's always a good thing, unless the purpose of your film is to make it feel like, wow, this feels odd, this feels weird, and then that's when not being real or relatable is okay.
Yeah, getting into like vivarium territory.
Yeah.
Speaking of like the differences between characters, I thought like hair, makeup, and costumes did really did well in showing the differences between each character.
Yeah, we touched upon some costumes earlier, but like it definitely like each one you could definitely see. I thought it was really interesting to see like Elizabeth had a good amount of costumes throughout the entire show, and all of them were very much like these huge fucking dresses that were unwieldy. Like the corset thing, kind of a joke, but it's like kind of not of a joke at the same time.
I love the fact that at the beginning they show what a woman would go through to get into a dress, not just
and
the dress itself, but everything underneath. I love that they showed that because people don't really think about all of the layers and that the corset is completely separate from the dress itself.
Yeah, definitely. That was an interesting thing, and like it also tied in with like when she falls off and has to be rescued by Jack, and like Jack can't fucking pull her up because she has all these watered down logs of layers.
Yeah.
So he has to literally rip her dress off to come up, and then it's like, oh shit.
And then also has to cut.
I know what the problem. I know what the problem is. Like, I've been to a few whorehouses in my day. Like,
that guy was probably a virgin that was just like, what?
that
I didn't
one
know.
guard.
Which is funny to watch those two because they make that entrance, but they make appearances in every single Pirates film.
Yeah, those two, and then the two pirates who are like, I think they're for all intents and purposes like the same character types, but like those four characters are in every single movie.
Yeah.
They are not. Not all four of them are in On Stranger Tides or Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Well.
Anyway,
I have my opinion about those movies.
So I wanted to mention that she had an interview. I can't remember the interview, but basically, she said that her boobs were too small, and they tried to do things that made her boobs look bigger. Like they stuffed her, they contoured it. And also Jack did a flat boob joke to her.
Yeah, he's like, unless you're hiding a sailboat in that bodice, which I like,
very
which
unlikely,
which is very. Because I knew that thing about like because with her and the interview and talking about how they tried everything through costume and even with makeup to make it so it looked like she had a chest to where like she could hide like the medallion and stuff like that in. I had completely forgot the line where he just did that, and it's so funny. It's always funny to me to find lines and stuff like that because this is like a PG movie.
Yeah.
It's like
but
lines like that. I'm like,
show a lot of almost full boob for it being.
I think this is PG-13.
Is it?
The Pirates movies were
Well,
all PG-13.
She's had. Keira Knightley has had digital breast enhancement in some of her other films.
Yeah, which is unfortunate in the sense that the studios felt that they had to do that they couldn't show that there's a bunch of different female body types. That's a whole other thing. We'll tune in soon. We'll talk about sexism in the industry, folks.
But I thought it was interesting where throughout this thing Jack is very particular about his costume, about his clothing. Is like when
he has to have his gun, he has to have his sword,
and you see
that. Well, like in this, is it the second movie where like he's very like he's trying to find a fucking
hat, and he
loses his
hat
find
a replacement the whole
and he's
movie.
taking hats off like dead bodies or just people fighting, and he's just upset
and
the
he's
entire
like
time.
switching hats and all that stuff. But the funny thing is that there's always this line, like it happens throughout several things, but throughout several of the films, but he's like, oh no, I have to have my effects, you have to give me those, you have to give me that pistol, that sword.
I'm not going anywhere without my things.
Right, he's got a pistol with one shot.
And he won't
add a shot to it, or
like obviously it's revealed later in the film that he is saving that shot to fucking kill Barbossa, and when he actually does it, like it makes it so like good. He managed. He kept that shot. He kept it going, and he was able to keep that thing going.
Also, he would have
Yeah.
kept that for at least 10 years without shooting it
Listen,
once.
revenge is a fucking motivator. Let me
Yeah,
tell
it
you
is.
what.
One thing that I think is really cool is that all of that stuff was given to him to when in number 5 when he goes and he does the thing to um what's
Yeah,
his name,
yeah,
you know,
Salazar.
Captain Salazar. When he does that thing, they literally make him their captain. And so here we see Jack trying to I'm a captain, it's Captain Jack Sparrow. All of
Mm-hmm.
those things was a symbol, was tribute that you're our captain here,
Yeah,
take our
in
tribute.
his
So
eyes, a captain needs that hat. A captain needs that
yeah,
sword. A captain needs to look a certain
so
way.
that is for me when he first became a captain, it was kind of like he's keeping all that stuff because for him that's what makes him captain, is having that gun and that sword and that hat. That was a symbol to him, which is why he always is particular about what he,
Yeah.
what he has.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, yeah, and like all the costumes, every single one of them, they fit the period really well. Same with the set.
Yeah.
Period
yeah.
was very strong in this film. I kind of wanted to talk about the accents. Uh, I thought the accents were brilliant, like, and especially like Jack
Yeah.
Sparrow's.
You got like a whole like a spectrum.
Yeah.
So
You got like almost every single British accent aside from Irish and Scottish. Like you got freaking high class received pronunciation all the way down to the slums low Cockney grimy shit, you know. It was really cool.
the accents were on point, and it very much goes with characterization that you can tell how these people were raised, what realm of society they are currently in too, because like that combined with language, because like there's that whole bit where she starts talking and uses a bunch of larger words, and then Barbossa's like, "Listen, we just be simple pirates." Like,
Yeah.
and then he
And
starts
spouts
using
off the big words.
yeah, he's just like, and he's like, "That means no," and I'm like, "Oh shit!" That's like so funny because like he had, I think Barbossa
Disinclined
had
to
what you would
acquiesce to your request.
yeah, I think Barbossa had what you would consider a traditional quote unquote pirate voice, if that makes sense.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. When you think of pirates, when
You
somebody's
go with like the
"Hey, do a
R.
pirate voice," it's "Arr, I'm a pirate. I have
Yeah,
a parrot and a best friend named First Mate."
Yeah, he wasn't 100% that, but he was in that realm, and obviously that was a choice that was made, and it worked very well.
Yeah.
But when you hear somebody like that, you automatically assume, this fucking guy, he's read one book in his life, and it was a cookbook. Like fucking, like it's like. And like he knows how to read a rum bottle. He doesn't know these big words or something like that, and he comes up and it does that whole like 30 seconds of dialogue is works very well because of the accents in that. And so yeah.
And there's so many just amazing jokes, like not even through dialogue, just through like actions and stuff throughout. It was
Yeah, the whole them looking and seeing like what the fuck is Jack looking at? Like no word about it, just quick moments.
it was a very good comedic / dramatic piece. I think last thing to talk about is directing.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the directing, the point that you were making earlier, Josh, about the hands,
Yeah. Jack's hands.
like that that definitely was like a director choice.
Oh,
Like
for sure.
to do any close up has to be a director's choice, but like the fact where it has to do something subtle yet not so subtle, because obviously we're getting a close up, so the subtlety to us is apparent while to the rest of the characters isn't.
Yeah.
But like you look at that sort of stuff and it's like, yeah, the director went down and saw, yeah, Jack Jack has the street smarts, like amazing street smarts, and like he's looking for a way out. Do this, move that, do that, like, or
Yeah.
and things like that. And then like also the directing to give like to do certain things in there to like that's like I always think it's good when you can see a director that allows there to be silly things in a movie, but it's not so silly that you're like, yeah, that wasn't right.
Yeah, well, and like that forethought going into things like the close-ups on the hands. This is Gore Verbinski who did the first three pirate movies. He also did The Ring and Rango, just to
Oh,
kind of show like the crazy and the Lone Ranger, just to show kind of like the crazy range that this guy works within. Um, and
mostly
those
Johnny Depp movies,
Mostly
but
Johnny
okay.
Depp.
mostly Johnny Depp movies.
Really
It
quick.
seems that directors really fucking love working with Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
I think it's
Like,
because he's like just a fun person. Like every time I see behind the scenes stuff of him, he just seems to like really love doing what he's doing and just having a good time doing
yeah,
it. Yeah. So we were talking about Gore Verbinski, and he's done The Ring and Rango and The Lone Ranger and A Cure for Wellness and the Three Pirates movies. And in all of his movies that I've seen, because I haven't seen like A Cure for Wellness, he likes doing those more subtle shots. Like when you're watching The Ring, you're constantly focusing on everything on the screen to try and see what the next scare is going to be. And it's not like they're going to be jump scares. It's what's the next weird thing that's going to make me think, oh shit, creepy stuff's going on. And so to bring that feel into a pirate movie and have this focusing so that things are moving forward in a way that keeps the audience completely engaged. And I think he probably had a lot to do with how the story, how the information was divvied up as well. Um, because it fits with his style. If he himself wasn't in there with the screenwriters helping decide things, I'm sure he had a lot of say on who the screenwriters should be.
And let's just, I appreciate that he allowed Johnny Depp to improvise and do that stuff, because that, you probably noticed, but that ending thing, the Bring Me the Horizon, was not in
Mm-hmm.
the script, and that was 100%
A lot of
improv by
stuff
Johnny Depp.
that
And
Johnny
that's,
Depp does is improv.
yeah,
A
yeah,
lot in there.
is,
Yeah, and I
you
I
know,
think it comes from he had seen what Johnny Depp could do, because Johnny Depp had done quite a few things at this point, um, and he knew he could get, if he let Johnny Depp do his thing, he could get a really good performance out of it. Um,
yeah.
I think this was a fairly well directed movie. I think that a lot of those directing choices really made this movie just like, last week we jokingly talked about S rank, but yeah, this would be S rank movie for me just based on some of the directing choices.
Yeah.
All right. So, should we get to grading?
I think we should get to grading. What are you thinking, Zach?
Yeah, it had like this movie was a solid pirate movie, and watching it I was like, yeah, this is like a pirate movie, like with the skeletons, with it really fit the genre, and there were only a few like minor issues I had with it, but that wasn't enough to lower the grade, so I give it an A.
An A. All right. Chris, how about you?
yeah, I give this a solid A. This is definitely like this fits under multiple categories for me, and I like it when it does the check mark. It has fantasy elements into it, adventure elements into it, some action sequence. It has, I guess, if you want to really consider it, like it technically is a love story in a
Yeah.
sense, but like so it check marks that box so much somewhat, and it just does it all fairly well, extremely well if we're talking technology wise for the time, and 95% of it will hold up forever,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah. Jonah, what's your grade?
Well, like I said, this is pretty much for me one of the movies that I feel is almost perfect. Um, I didn't. I When I walked away from this movie, I was left satisfied. It was one of those things where it's like, man, I it wasn't I want more, and like, they haven't answered all the questions. It was like I want more because I want to see more of this. This was so awesome. Um, but as a standalone film, I enjoy this so much. This is my favorite Pirates movie. This is probably one of my favorite Disney films. Up there in one of my favorite of the Disney films. Not like my top favorite, but it's up there. At least in the top 5. So for me, this gets an A plus. If that's one of the ratings, I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Do we
possible.
do Okay. So yeah, for me, this gets like the highest rating that I can give it because of how much I enjoyed it and stuff rewatching it as, you know,
Yeah.
not as being a critic about it, but also just watching it to enjoy it and to rewatch something I haven't seen in years
Yeah.
was I just really really enjoyed it much more than I remember enjoying it the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Chloe?
Um, I I have very personal feelings about this movie because it was one of my favorites growing up, but also looking at it and I don't normally watch movies with the intent of critiquing them. Um, but I did when we watched it yesterday. I was like, okay, we're gonna be reviewing this. I need to like be sharp and pay attention. And there's not a lot to complain about. There's not very many things that I was like, oh, it's lacking on that, or oh, I didn't like that, because I mean, it's held up thus far. And I think everything about it is just really well done. So I also give it an A plus.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, getting into my grading when I watch a movie and I'm critiquing the movie, regardless of whether I've seen it or not, it always starts at like the absolute highest grade I could possibly give it, and then as I'm watching the movie, if I think of anything that would bring that grade down, that grade progressively comes down, right? So like I'm watching Pirates of the Caribbean and it's at that A plus S rank area, and it's ready to go and just be one of the best movies that I've ever seen. And by the end of the movie, there wasn't anything that brought it down, so I'd also be giving it an A plus.
So we're averaging at an A plus.
For the first
A
time.
plus movie.
First A plus movie, baby.
Highest ranking movie. Wait until what movie were we talking about earlier? Yeah. Wait until we talk about Last Airbender. That'll
Scorpion
be
King.
S rank.
Oh god.
Oh god.
S
for
rank,
shitty,
folks.
right?
S for
Something.
So yeah, S for something. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Also, we just released Haunting of Benson Manor, and look out for Change and Nightmare coming out in November.
Keep an
Yeah,
eye
we
out
still
for
got
them.
Change and Nightmare.
I'm in Nightmare, so if you want
Yeah.
to see this pretty face, keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, keep
Maybe
an eye
don't
out
watch Nightmare.
on YouTube and the Tweetoverse. Instagrams. We have 3 LinkedIn accounts.
Every time we
What?
do one of these, Chris makes a
I've
new
got
LinkedIn
like 12.
post.
you gotta fucking build a network. You gotta build a network.
All right. Yeah, go
410
subscribe
Horsemen.
on YouTube for 410 Horsemen. Go follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of that stuff. We hope you guys have enjoyed this, and we're out.
Bye, everybody. Disney, don't sue us.